Hey, I know this sounds crazy, but whatever you're going through, it won't last forever. I promise. The words were soft, almost a whisper, as 25-year-old Rowan Mitchell slid a steaming cup of coffee across the counter to the stranger who'd been crying in the corner booth for the past 20 minutes. It was 6 a.m. at Brewed Awakening, the small coffee shop in downtown Portland, and Rowan was the only employee on duty. The woman, elegant even in her distress, wearing a designer coat and mascara-streaked cheeks, looked up with red-rimmed eyes, surprised. I didn't order anything yet, she said, her voice breaking. I know, Rowan replied gently, offering a napkin along with the coffee. It's on the house. Vanilla latte with extra foam. My mom always says it's impossible to stay completely hopeless while drinking something warm and sweet. I don't know if that's true, but it's worth a try. The woman stared at the cup, then at Rowan, and something in her carefully constructed composure finally shattered completely. Fresh tears spilled over. "Thank you," she whispered. "You have no idea. Thank you." Rowan simply nodded and moved back to wiping down the espresso machine, giving the stranger space to breathe. She'd learned that lesson from her mother, who'd raised her alone after her father left when Rowan was 6. Her mom had worked 3 jobs to keep them afloat, always exhausted, but never too tired to notice when someone was hurting. "Kindness doesn't cost us anything, Ro," she'd say, "but it might cost someone everything to receive it when they need it most." What Rowan didn't know was that the crying stranger was Callista Brennan, 33-year-old CEO of Brennan Coffee Enterprises, a chain of over 200 upscale coffee shops across the country, including the very one where Rowan worked. And Callista had just endured the worst 48 hours of her life. 2 days ago, her girlfriend of 4 years had ended their relationship, telling Callista she'd become cold, consumed by work, impossible to reach emotionally. Yesterday, her parents, shareholders in her company and relentlessly critical of every decision she made, had demanded she sell the business to a corporate conglomerate, claiming she was too emotional, too soft to run a successful enterprise. They'd always treated her success as their achievement and her struggles as personal failures. Callista had built Brennan Coffee from a single shop her grandmother left her into a thriving empire, but suddenly she felt like she'd lost herself completely in the process. She'd driven aimlessly through the city at dawn, ended up at this random location, and walked in planning to just sit and disappear for a while. Then a young barista with kind eyes gave her free coffee and told her things wouldn't last forever. And something about that simple gesture broke through the numbness. Callista sipped the latte slowly, watching Rowan work, the careful attention to detail, the gentle way she greeted the few morning customers, the genuine warmth in her smile. When the shop emptied again, Callista approached the counter. "Can I ask you something?" Callista said, her voice steadier now. "Why did you do that? Give me the coffee, I mean. You don't know me." Rowan shrugged, a small smile playing at her lips. You looked like you needed someone to see you, that's all. Sometimes that's enough, right? Just knowing someone noticed you're struggling. "Don't you worry about your manager finding out, giving away free drinks?" Callista asked, genuinely curious. Rowan laughed softly. "Probably, but my mom's in the hospital right now. Nothing critical, just some tests for her heart. And it reminded me that life's too short to follow every rule when someone's hurting. If I get written up, I get written up. Some things matter more than keeping a perfect record." Callista felt something shift inside her chest. "Your mother sounds like a remarkable woman." "She is," Rowan said, her eyes brightening. "She taught me that success isn't about what you accumulate, it's about what you give away when it costs you something." They talked for another hour, during which Callista never mentioned who she was, and Rowan never asked. They were just 2 people sharing space and honesty.
Callista speaking carefully about feeling lost despite appearing successful. Rowan sharing her dreams of maybe opening her own tiny cafe someday where every customer felt valued, not just processed. When Callista finally left, she pressed a $50 bill into Rowan's hand. For the coffee, she insisted, and for reminding me that kindness still exists. The next morning, Rowan arrived for her shift to find the store manager, Derek, pacing anxiously. Corporate's coming today. Unannounced visit. The CEO herself. Everyone's freaking out. Make sure everything is spotless. Rowan's stomach dropped. She'd heard horror stories about corporate inspections, employees getting fired for minor infractions, stores being shut down for not meeting impossible standards. She thought about yesterday's free coffee and winced. At exactly 9 a.m., the door opened and Callista Brennan walked in, flanked by two assistants. She was transformed from yesterday, composed, professional, every inch the powerful CEO. Rowan froze, recognition and panic flooding through her simultaneously. Callista's eyes met hers, and for a moment, time stopped. Then Callista approached the counter, her expression unreadable. "You're Rowan, correct?" Callista asked, her voice professional but not unkind. "Yes, ma'am," Rowan managed, bracing for termination. "I need to speak with you privately. Derek, please give us the office." In the cramped back office, Rowan expected the worst. Instead, Callista's professional mask crumbled slightly, revealing the vulnerable woman from yesterday. "I owe you an explanation," Callista said quietly. "I'm Callista Brennan. I own this company. And yesterday, when you gave me that coffee, I was at the lowest point I've been in years. I'd actually driven to that bridge on Morrison Street, planning to just stop fighting, stop trying, stop hurting." Rowan's hand flew to her mouth, tears instant in her eyes. "But then I walked in here instead, and you, a complete stranger, working an early shift, probably exhausted, dealing with your own worries about your mother, you saw me. You offered kindness without knowing who I was or what I could do for you. You reminded me that human connection still exists, that compassion isn't dead, that maybe I wasn't as alone as I felt." "I didn't know," Rowan started. "I know you didn't. That's exactly why it mattered. You weren't performing kindness for recognition or reward. You were just being human, and you saved my life." Rowan wiped her eyes, overwhelmed. "I just gave you coffee." "You gave me hope," Callista said firmly. "And now I want to ask you something. I've been reassessing everything, my company, my values, what actually matters. I've realized I built all of this but lost sight of why. My grandmother started our first shop because she believed coffee shops should be community spaces, places where people felt seen and valued. Somewhere along the way, I forgot that. I turned it into numbers and expansion and profit margins." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "I want to create a new position, Director of Community and Culture. Someone who'll help me remember what actually matters, who'll ensure every location feels like what you created yesterday, a place where people matter more than transactions. I'd like that person to be you." Rowan stared, certain she'd misheard. "Me? But I'm just a barista. I don't have business experience, or—" "You have something more valuable," Callista said. "You have heart. You have the wisdom your mother taught you. You understand what I've forgotten, that kindness is the whole point. Everything else is just details." What Rowan didn't say immediately was that she'd actually been preparing to quit. Her mother's medical bills were piling up, and she'd been planning to take a higher-paying corporate job she'd hate just to stay afloat financially. This offer, with its substantially higher salary and purpose she actually believed in, felt like an impossible gift. "Can I ask something? My mother's hospital bills, they're substantial. If I take this position with the company insurance, your mother will have the best coverage we offer, Callista said immediately, and I'll personally ensure any existing medical debt is addressed, not as payment for your kindness, that would diminish it, but because taking care of our people means actually taking care of them, comprehensively. Rowan's tears returned, but this time they carried relief, gratitude, and hope. Then yes, absolutely yes. Over the following months, something remarkable happened. Working together, Callista and Rowan began transforming Brennan Coffee from the inside out. They implemented community moments, encouraging baristas to offer free coffee to anyone having a visibly hard day. They created mentorship programs, improved benefits, and most importantly, reminded every employee that they were valued as humans, not just workers. Callista's parents were furious, predicting financial ruin. But something unexpected happened. Customer loyalty increased, employee retention soared, and the company's reputation shifted from corporate chain to community partner. Profits actually grew, not despite the kindness, but because of it. Callista also began therapy, working through the emotional walls she'd built to survive her parents' criticism and her ex's departure. She learned to set boundaries, to define success on her own terms, to believe her grandmother would be proud of who she was becoming, not just what she'd built. And Rowan's mother recovered fully, often visiting the flagship store where her daughter now worked, beaming with pride at the young woman who turned a simple act of compassion into a movement. 1 year after that tearful morning, Callista and Rowan stood in the original Brood Awakening location, now designated as a community hub. A plaque hung by the door. Kindness spoken here, where everyone matters. You know what still amazes me? Callista said softly. If you'd known who I was that morning, you might have acted differently. Tried to impress me, maybe, or been too nervous to be genuine. Rowan smiled. And if I'd known you owned the company, I definitely wouldn't have given away free coffee. They both laughed, but then Callista's expression grew serious. Thank you, Rowan, for seeing a crying stranger and choosing compassion, for reminding me that the most valuable currency we have is our humanity, for saving my life in the simplest, most profound way possible. Thank you for showing me that kindness doesn't make you weak, it makes you brave, and that success built on compassion is the only kind worth having. Because in the end, kindness is never wasted. A free cup of coffee, a gentle word, a moment of genuine care, these small gestures ripple outward in ways we can't predict or measure. They remind us that we're seen, that we matter, that we're not alone in our struggles. And sometimes they save lives in ways that matter far more than profit margins or corporate success. They save our faith in humanity itself.
If this story touched your heart, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Let's spread more stories of kindness and hope together.